Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Myles. I'll be your voiceover for today, which means you've got the pleasure of not seeing my face. Today we're talking about the GHAlex LUT, which was used to grade the introduction you just saw. In fact, all of that was the GHAlex LUT with just simple luma and color corrections rather than any LUT applied on top. That was all just GHAlex basically. So full disclosure up front, I am not affiliated with the creator of the LUT, nor am I getting paid or any kind of preferable treatment from him for doing this. I paid for the LUT itself. It wasn't even given to me for free, so this is a completely honest and unbiased review. So instead I'm going to plug myself and tell you about this GH5 course that I've made for beginners. It's a bestseller on the Udemy platform. There's a discount for it below which gets you 24% off, and it's a good course for beginners. It's about 4 hours worth of material you can download to your mobile device and watch on the Udemy app offline. It's packed with tests, sample footage, downloadable checklists that you can use in the field, and it'll help you get going with the GH5 and get you good results or your money back. So back to the GHAlex LUT. So what is it and why is it worth reviewing? Well, it's a $35 LUT which is developed using an actual Arri camera to do two things as far as I can tell. Firstly, to match the color science of the Arri Alexa, and secondly, to give you a gradual highlight roll off to make your GH5 footage more filmic. There's a good video on the website to show some example footage and a bit of blurb from the creator himself to explain how he did it using the Arri camera. As far as I'm aware, it is only available on the GH5 for now. Last time I spoke to the creator, he was hoping for a version for the GH5S in the next couple of months. So this has the potential to make quite a fundamental change to GH5 footage. The Arri Alexa obviously is a huge deal. It's super well known for its color science. Now obviously you're not going to get Arri Alexa dynamic range. It's not going to hang on to the skin tones and the colors if it's underexposed or overexposed as well as the Arri Alexa would. But this look promises as good as you can get from the GH5. And these example skin tones are really nice. You just need to look at last year's Oscar nominated films and the cameras they used to see how much of a big deal it is. And when you hear of people matching the little old GH5 to that Alexa, then you know it's kind of a big deal. So in this video I'm just going to go through some sample footage, give you my pros and cons, and let you judge for yourself on how it looks. If anyone's interested in a workflow video on how to shoot for it and also how to grade it, then please let me know in the comments and I can make that my next video. So this LUT is designed to be used in Vlog, although you can use other profiles which I'll come on to. You'll be shooting in 10-bit, so if you're recording internally to SD card, that means if you want to get 50 or 60p, you should consider knocking it down from 4K to HD so you can keep that 10-bit. For the before and afters I'll show throughout the video. If it was shot in Cine D, then I'll be comparing to my own Cine D LUT that I gave away in a previous video. And if it's a Vlog shot, I'll be comparing to my own Vlog LUT, which I've yet to release but will be doing so in a future video. So what you might notice from these before and afters is that the dynamic range is being compressed in the image. It's forcing the extreme highlights down whilst keeping contrast and making the colours kind of pastel-y. Now there is a bit of a learning curve when it comes to using these LUTs and you can't just apply them and go. There is a PDF that comes with the LUTs when you buy them, but at the moment there's only instructions for Premiere Pro or DaVinci Resolve, and it can be a bit confusing. In that PDF it shows the 4 main variations of the LUT that you get. That's obviously main, soft, linear and log C. Log C is kind of standalone because that actually just converts it to a different kind of log where you'll have to grade or apply a LUT after that in order to get a Rec 709 image. But the others in theory give you a Rec 709 image, albeit you can further grade that if you like. So the differences between main, soft and linear come down to the highlight ceiling that it forces on your footage, the contrast and the saturation. So main is a healthy dose of contrast and saturation with a max IRE of 76, which means if you've got some really bright highlights in your scene, they'll be squashed down to a max IRE of 76. Soft will lift the saturation a little bit on that and the contrast, and also it will further reduce your max highlights to 73. And linear, the one I like to use the most, has a max IRE of 91. You can see what's happening to the extreme highlights. The white point or the brightest point on the image has been smashed down, and the information just below that white point is also going to be compressed near the top, which is the highlight roll off or the highlight shoulder. In this case that's massively affecting the sky, so we've lost some detail in there if I don't manipulate it any further. So it took some work for me to get that looking just as I'd like, and that's going to be a theme with this LUT throughout, to be honest. But what I do like about what it did by default is to the skin tones. It smoothed out the contrast in skin tones and raised them a bit, which is a pleasing look but quite far from what it was shot like. So why do these LUTs bring down the highlight ceiling? Well, this is a good blog to read if you're interested in that kind of topic, and I've stolen from there an example to demonstrate why they do what they do. So as you can see from this frame from Sicario, on the left we've got some bright windows So the thinking behind this is, if they leave this as it was shot, like on the right hand side of the screen, the highlights there completely take over the scene, and so by reducing the highlight ceiling as they do on the left, it's more of a balanced shot. There's nothing really taking over, so it lets your eyes focus on the actress. So that's the highlight ceiling, but what about highlight roll-off? Now, highlight roll-off describes the transition of strong highlights to the rest of the scene. Pixel peepers will tell you that good highlight roll-off, where it's softer, is a sign of a better camera or a cinema camera, and cameras like the GH5 fall short by having harsher highlight roll-off. I thought this was an interesting shot to demonstrate what the LUT's doing. So this is the original vlog shot, and just take a look at these really strong highlights coming from some spotlights above the helmet. Notice how it goes from very harsh highlights to the rest of the scene. Now if we look at the GHAlex LUT version of the same shot, we can see how that's a much softer transition. The highlights are obviously still there, but it's generally regarded as more pleasing when it's softer like this. So I did mention before that it was designed for vlog. You can also use Cine-D or HLG, and the creators included in the LUT pack a way to convert that Cine-D or HLV footage to vlog, where you can just grade it as normal. Cine-D is actually recommended if you're going high frame rate, and it might even be the safer option in low light. Essentially, whenever you need to shoot in 8-bit, Cine-D is the choice. Here's some before and afters from Cine-D, and you can see it does perform quite well. I've never personally come across an 8-bit shot thinking, wow, this really needed to be 10-bit, but I'm not the biggest of pixel peepers. If you are able to shoot in 10-bit and you haven't bought the vlog upgrade, you can still make most of the maximum dynamic range the camera will give you by shooting in HLG. I don't use it a lot myself, so as you can see by these shots of mine, they are quite casual, nothing too filmic or set up. This is just to give you a flavour of what it looks like on HLG. And to be honest, probably needed more grading than I did. This is just a rough and ready, slap the LUT on and do some rough luma corrections. So what are the pros and cons? For me, it gives a pleasing look to the skin, and honestly that is what attracted me to this LUT. They were a bit more creamy than I was used to, especially in the samples that he gave. It's generally quite flattering. I think it bumps the exposure a bit in the skin tones, and it seems to smooth them out a bit. In my opinion, it gives you better, more film-like colour than the regular vlog conversion, and the same will apply to Cine-D or HLG. These are nicer colours, and they look like they've been graded, whereas Cine-D and HLG on their own do need a bit more work, I think. I think that's especially true if you like softer pastel colours. This seems to get you halfway there already. In fact, it's already a saucy enough look for me sometimes. I can even use linear and just leave it as that for a nice rounded look with a bit of a cinematic hint to it. Of course, you can grade it beyond that, but I think it's a nice starting point. And if you are a pixel peeper, the highlight roll-off will probably look much improved for you. For me, these benefits do come with some trade-offs. First of all, I thought it was a bit expensive at $35 per LUT, and I say per LUT because there's a tungsten and a daylight version. There is a deal there to make it $60 for both, but otherwise it's $35 each. Personally, I just bought the daylight one. I think the difference will be too subtle for most to notice between the daylight and the tungsten one, if I'm honest. But despite the price, when I heard that people were actually using it to match the GH5 to the Arri, it does kind of look like a steal. Because if you're going to grade the Arri Log C with the Arri Look library, which is developed by Arri, that thing costs about $800. So in that context, this does sound like a bargain. I think you also need to know that it's not necessarily really easy to work with. It's definitely not just a case of throwing this LUT on and you're done with it. You've got to be very specific about how you shoot it, getting your luma right and your white balance, and in post it might still need further adjustment. If you're already committed to a log workflow, it's probably not much worse than dealing with log itself, but it does require some learning on how to expose for it and get the best results. In terms of what can go wrong when you get the exposure wrong, well, this was overexposed in camera, although I don't think anything important was clipping. So to grade this with Cine-D, I would just apply a curve like this, and then my Cine-D neutral look to give it more saturation contrast, and I'd land somewhere like that. Whereas the GHAlex was a bit weird about it. It kind of looks like an HDR shot. We've got quite a lot of colour in the shadows, but yeah, I'm not really convinced by the colour and detail held in this building. It still needs a bit more work, I think. My final compromise I wanted to look at with the GHAlex is what it does to the skin tones. They do end up looking good, but when you first apply the LUT, I think the skin tones can look a bit pinkish. Now I'm fully accepting that might involve some user error. I suspect I might have shot this Cine-D shot, for example, with -3 on the saturation rather than the recommended -5, but it is a bit of a faff then to try and correct that. I do really like the natural creamy skin tones that he's given on the website as an example, but I'm finding my results, I don't quite get it that way. It's not far off, but it does just need a bit of work. All that said, I hope I didn't come across as a Debbie Downer because I do really like this LUT and I do use it. Please go ahead and let me know what you think of the LUT in the comments below, and feel free to ask me any questions or to ask for that shoot/edit workflow in the next video. Thanks a lot for watching this one, I'll catch you next time.